contact me at the end of this, there's my email address there, right there. It's mike@floridaWalksandBikes.org.
Didn't hear it.
Okay, a little bit about me. I've been involved in bicycle pedestrian issues since 1985. I did a new college thesis on it. And in the late 80s, I was Florida's first bicycle lobbyist, and been working with Florida Walks and Bikes, and we got 5 changes in Florida law in 2012, and I continue to work on in Tallahassee and Sarasota on these issues. What we're going to talk about tonight is how Sarasota has gone wrong with sidewalks and walkability, and how we've actually gone right before, and how we can do this again. Now, we like to call ourselves the Rodney Dangerfields of the world. And to be fair, this is not just a... Do I need it? To be fair, this is not just a Sarasota problem, but Sarasota does, in fact, contribute its share. This is US 41, 14th Street, and this is what we get. That's looking north. That's looking south. Go across the street and imagine all the potential for mayhem at this intersection. You have cars turning, cars going in 2 directions. You have pedestrians going this way and that way. You have bicyclists, and you have a utility pole in the middle of the sidewalk. And there we are 1 block north, just to make it complete. One thing I would point out is that you notice that both of these problem intersections, there are for sale signs. I wonder if that has anything to do with the lack of walkability. Okay, so we're going to talk about if this is walkable, and I want to stress that walkability and walkable have different definitions. Every road agency, every consultant, every developer screams that their stuff is walkable. The city's planners, the form-based code people, say their stuff is walkable. And note that most of these people rarely walk. They're usually talking about someone else doing that. And also note that these terms have been overused into oblivion. It's like green or sustainable. If anybody tells you something is walkable, demand that they define their terms. Then the classic definition of walkable has been, well, it's possible to walk. Now, this is a place where it's possible to walk. Do you see many people out here walking? Is this a place you would take your family and your kids voluntarily? Not very many people do. And then we have the view. I think all of us have seen the view. And for them, walkable, or at least the people who've rendered the decision about walkable, means, and this again is another classic definition of walkable, build the important stuff. Build the building, build the road. If anything's left, throw in a sidewalk. If anything's left. This is 635 South Orange, another one done in the current zoning code. Here, you build right up to the lot line, and you make do with whatever's left. And this, this is Orange Avenue. Now, I'd like to say this, a little bit off topic here, but the view is particularly reprehensible because of what should have been a model immediately adjacent to its north. This is the Ritz-Carlton property, and that's the walkway in front of it. Look at it. It's beautiful. It's magnificent. 6-foot strip on the side, 12-foot walkway, and 13.5-foot strip on the other side with nice palm trees. Beautiful palm trees. Another good look at it. And this is what happens to that. Now, it may be a little bit unfair because it hasn't been constructed yet, but you can sort of see what's going to happen. The view juts out into more than half of where the old walkway used to be. You can see that where the road is, maybe they might take a little bit out of the road, perhaps, but it's nothing like what it was. I would say that and the other part about this that's really sad is that very particularly downtown Sarasota should have been a circle of walkability. We would want people to come downtown, walk over to Marina Jack's, walk over by the Ritz, walk to the upcoming quay with its 189,000 feet of square retail space, walk to our cultural park, go across the condos on the east side, and walk back downtown. This crimps the circle. It won't happen unless it's a whole circle, and this breaks it. Apparently this was even too much for the city because the original plans called for it to neck down from this 12 feet over here to 8 feet at the other end. And then at some point they modified their plans and they put a little grass strip over there on the roadside. And they did that at the expense of the motorists by not eating into the roadway, narrowing down the lanes. So, and this is what it's going to be squeezed into. It's a better shot of it. So that's about my circle of walkability. I just want to emphasize that that's an opportunity that we should continue to work on. We may have to work around or through or do something about the view, but maybe just live with it. But hopefully we can keep that going. Downtown Sarasota should be walkable and all points should be connected. Oops, excuse me. Here's another look at what I call the Andre Dewani Promenade. Now again, is this walkable? And if it means possible to walk through, yes. Now, I'm just going to mention something from, I guess, the bicycle pedestrian world. When we talk about walkable, we don't talk about it just being possible. We talk about walking as a form of transportation. It's a state where walking is a viable, convenient, safe, and attractive form of transportation. You shouldn't feel like you're taking your life in your hands at any point. You shouldn't have the sun beating down on you. You shouldn't have the wind rush of cars every 5 seconds. You should feel, there should be shade if you're in Florida. And every street should be walkable. That may sound like a radical statement, but we think it's true. And it should form a connected network. If the network is broken, you don't have a walkable network. We believe that all streets and developments should be designed around walkability just like they design around roads or sewers or electric. It's a public good. Rodney Tolley from Walk 21, who wrote the International Walking Charter, once said that walking is not just about point A and point B, it's about what you experience between those points. And he says you have to deal with the 5 C's if you're going to be walkable. And I like this because it's a little bit British, but they have to be connected. That's very important. They have to be comfortable, convenient, and here his Britishness comes through. You have to be convivial. That makes them attractive and conspicuous. So, this is not the approach of the city of Sarasota, which is to build to the lot line, fit a sidewalk in wherever space remains. And if it looks a little bit wide, it looks like too much space for pedestrians, throw in a grass strip. Walkability means allowing enough setback, and this is something that Sarasota will have to confront, so that there is space for pedestrians and a policy of building these spaces, these well-designed spaces for pedestrians on developments and streets. Now, let me say this. I've been going a little bit about what the definition of walkability is. We have our extremists in walkability, too. There are some who will tell you that, these streets can never be walkable because people can't walk to everything they need. They can't walk to where they work. They can't walk to where they shop, etc. And so that's not the definition we're working with here. We think that's a little bit utopian ideal of everybody living in some isolated village where they can walk to get everything. That's a fine vision, but you're not going to see Bird Key have its own shopping center and have all the people who work there be able to walk to work and live there. It's just not going to happen. I don't think you're going to see that in Lido and Longboat either. You see this in the county's 2050 plan, but they're talking about creating villages from the ground up. I hope that it works. Okay, so with all this, what would be a good guide to walkability? I've found this one. In 2010, I was asking around about it because all of the standards that I had seen up to that point were sort of walkable as possible issue. They said, they said sidewalk should be a minimum of 5 feet, and they didn't really say much more. And at that point, I contacted Billy Hadaway, who was a consultant at that point, but he's now the FDOT District 1 Secretary, and he said that this was the best book at the time. I believe it remains at this time. It's a remarkable book in many ways. What's most remarkable about it is it was written by the Congress for the New Urbanism, co-authored, and by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And the thing about that is, like I said, there are other things that make it very remarkable, but this brings the engineers into it. This is not just planners and visionaries, but these are people who make walkability merge into the whole rest of road design science and road designs and standards. So by involving the engineers, it actually became realistic. So what does it say? All right, before getting into that, this is our one piece of technical information. I promise this is it. And there will not be a test at the end. Before getting into all that, what you should know is this is a little bit of pedestrian science. Sidewalks have 4 spaces if they're well designed. they have what's called a frontage zone. This is space between the wall and where you're going to walk. And this allows for doors to open, for window shopping, for umbrella stands, whatever. Then there's a pedestrian throughway, 8 to 10 feet in urban areas. Then there's what we call the furnishing zone. And that's where you put trees, street furnishings. That's where you put benches, trash cans, fire hydrants, etc. And finally, if there's parking around, you have something called the edge zone. And that's where if a car is parking at an angle, it can overhang the curb. Or if it's parallel parking, the doors can swing. Or if you have a bus stop, the bus doors swing. No test on that at the end. I just want you to know all that before we get into the rest. This is what the general look would be. Nothing too radical. There's a pedestrian throughway. You might have people sitting close to the wall. You have people. There's trees, and then there's an edge zone. I apologize for this picture. It's a little bit furry, but this is just good form. The same sort of idea. Frontage zone, a throughway, furnishings, edge zone, and this is just from another city. The same idea. So, how would this change how the city operates? Well, here's the view, and I start off with the latest city modification, which is they're now talking about maybe 7 to 8 feet of sidewalk and 3 to 7 feet of planter strips. But the original one was just 8 feet of sidewalk through most of it, and with designing walkable urban thoroughfares, you'd have 17.5 feet of paved street side with trees, street furnishings, no edge zone because there's no parking. Here's the Embassy Suites. Again, very attractive pedestrian environment coming. There, I measured this with a tape, about 9'6" of space. I actually don't know what's going there. They haven't built it yet, but it'll be a probable sidewalk, maybe some grass strips. By our recommendations, it should be 17.5 feet. Now note there's no edge zone, and that's because, unlike the one proposed, we don't have parking on US 41. Nor are we going to make it a 28-mile-per-hour street. Now, here is the northwest corner of Coconut and Boulevard of the Arts, and it's a 9-foot sidewalk there. And note that they put trees in here. They didn't attempt to do that, but because the sidewalk is so narrow, the trees only leave about 4 feet or 5 feet of space to walk. And also, just as a side, look how close the sidewalk's going to be to people's windows and kitchens. Again, with the city, here we have utility poles in the walkway. I wonder why. Okay, the northwest, so anyway, and these are the specs. Like I said, it should be 14.5 feet of paved street side instead of 9 feet. This is on Orange Avenue. We saw this slide before. That's a major commercial street. And I just noticed that the overhangs sort of compound the cramped feel. Again, they have 5 feet of sidewalk. The grass strip varies 3 to 5.5 feet. Should be 14.5 feet with spaced trees. Now, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We can change things. We changed the city zoning code in 2003, and we can change it again, and we can require wider sidewalks as per this manual, which I think is really the only option out there. And I'd like to end on a happier note, so the news is that we have already done it. It's not so hard. Back when the city's code was based on common sense, Sarasota built some nice street sides, and Orlando and West Palm Beach have already done it. So here's some good examples. This is Pastry Arts, 1512 Main Street. Notice the sidewalk there, roughly 12 feet. Notice how it widens out, and then suddenly notice the explosion in human activity on the street. That's what you get when you get a sidewalk where there's space for people. This is one of my favorites. This is Lemon Avenue, and it's almost exactly according to specs. But you see they've got about 11 feet of sidewalk, and about 4 feet of a furnishing zone. And one thing here you don't see that often in the city, you see these little sandwich boards out front. And you see there's actually 3 of them in this picture. And I was once told by city planner Mike Taylor that the city considers these to be a code violation. But whatever, I think they're cute, and I think they add to the ambiance. Another advantage here of this wide sidewalk, by the way, is that this is a vital area for the Saturday Farmers Market. Saturday Farmers Market needs this, so wide sidewalks allow for special events. Okay, here we have 2 senioritas. Again, another wide sidewalk, and you see in the furnishing zone, occasionally without trees, but then occasionally they take it up with outdoor dining. And my favorite, Palm Avenue, almost exactly according to specs. 19 feet overall, about 9.5 feet from the wall of the furnishings, and 5.5 feet furnishings, and a great edge zone for when you park your car, you can get out easily. And here's my last slide, mercifully. It's great for pedestrians. It's comfortable, convivial, and conspicuous. It just needs to be connected. Thank you very much for your time.